Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. This is going to be my patch 10.0.7, nearly, I'd assume, patch 10.1, Affliction Warlock, feedback, video, discussion, all of that. This is going to be video 4 out of 4 in the series. Demo came out about a week ago, Destro came out about 2 days ago, and the Clash Tree came out about a week and a half ago or so. But Affliction was saved for last because Affliction's been receiving a good bit of changes over the past few weeks, whether they're bug fixes, buffs, nerfs, and thankfully we held out for a little bit longer than I thought I would initially because Dread Touch was buffed from 6 seconds to 8 seconds in 10.0.7 PTR, which is great. Don't get a hit on that, but there are still a good bit of talent nodes and a couple of just general things with Affliction, button bloat and seed rapture casting and things that I do want to hit on tonight in more of a separate section, possibly about like just the general flow of AF. So with that being said, as always, week course add-ons, links to Twitch and Discord down below, all for free for you guys. And once again, as always, big shout out to my patrons again for all support. Before we start the video, thank you guys a million times for all support on Patreon. If you'd like to support on Patreon, links up here as well as down below in the description. With that being said, let's jump right into Affliction Warlock talents. Alright, so getting into it now, there are a handful of nodes in the Warlock, I guess the AF class tree, that are sort of undertuned, and we can hit on them for a long time and make a 10-page document on feedback, but I want to hit on what I think is more impactful and what is just larger and which could change the spec tree just to be better as a whole. So, a couple quick notes here. These are all fine, obviously. Rapture, I mean, fine if you want to call it that, but Rapture, UA, and stuff. The first note that I want to hit on briefly is Xavian Teachings. Corruption's been instant cast for a very long time. However, it requires Xavian Teachings to be instant cast for Affliction. Xavian Teachings, I guess the damage application ability was added to Corruption, I believe, in patch 9.1. Maybe 9.0.5 in Shadowlands, but Corruption's been instant cast for a long time for Affliction, and I will say that it feels very bad having to spend a talent point to get instant cast Corruption. Destro and Demo, if it was played in those specs, whatever, sure, have a cast time on it. Nobody plays it anyways, but Affliction is the dot spec. It feels like it should just have a passive Corruption application regardless. It feels bad having to waste a point going into Xavian Teachings, and there has been some debates about not playing it in Plus and everything else at times because you're playing AC and you're playing so. I played it in Alpha and Beta. The high-end keys are not skipping Xavian Teachings, and being honest, even in the few scenarios we have to cast Corruption, like on bosses or prio mobs or smaller pulls, it feels bad. You shouldn't need to have a talent in Xavian Teachings to make Corruption instant cast. So maybe just make it instant cast baseline and add a larger damage clause to this. Maybe have it increase Corruption's ticking damage further. Maybe have dots matter a bit more. That'd be pretty cool. But make it instant cast baseline like it used to be, and it feels like you're having to waste a talent point here just to get an ability back to the way it used to be in a better form. So, moving on here, the first big note I want to hit on, though, as far as talent choices are concerned, is actually Agonizing Corruption. Now, when this talent was unveiled during Alpha and Beta, I was very excited about it. It sounded really cool because, hey, dots are ramping on trash. Dots do more damage. Dots are back. They're relevant. But we learned pretty quickly that dots aren't relevant in Mythic Plus still. It's more seeded Corruption damage, spamming seed, some Vile Taint damage at times, Soul Flame damage. It was Grim Reach damage and that kind of stuff. It's not really Agony damage or Corruption damage or whatever, right? Now, I think Agonizing Corruption, if it stays around, should be a max rank 1 talent, like rank 0 out of 1, 1 out of 1 being max, and have it just give 2 stacks at rank 1 out of 1 per seed explosion, right? Because it gives 2 if you have 2 points in it. But realistically, even if it was a rank 1 max talent point, it probably still wouldn't be played because your AoE damage is seed and Soul Flame and Grim Reach. It's not dot damage, right? Now it is a bit misleading because seeded Corruption goes into Sow the Seeds, which gives you 3 seeds. So technically 3 seeds explode when you cast seed with Sow. So it's like 6 stacks per seed explosion. But once again, even with that being the case, it's just very subpar. And Agony is not a large portion of your damage in Mythic Plus overall. So even if it was made a rank, 1 max trait and everything, and they made it 2 stacks per seed, it's probably still wouldn't be played. What I'd like to see, which could be addressed this way or in a different way later on, is maybe have reduced Seeded Corruption's cast time. Seed being a 2-second cast versus Rapture being 1.2, it feels bad. Now, in Shadowlands, we had Soul Rot with Decaying Soul Satchel, and you had the legendary Field of Blossoms, you had Decaying Soul Satchel, which made Seed spam feel much better in Plus. You go into a pack, put a few Agonies up, and just put down a Soul Rot, DSS, and Field of Blossoms and start throwing seeds. Just throw in seeds, right? But you don't have the Field of Blossoms amp. You don't have Decaying Soul Satchel. Seed of Corruption's cast time is glacially slow, and every dungeon has 10,000 frontals and swirlies on the ground you got to move out of as a caster in the first place. It is so frustrating trying to cast 2-second seeds in plus the majority of the time. I think if it went like, you know, Rapture, whatever, into Seed, into Sow, and then maybe something that reduced the cast time on Seed. You could even put it here, move Sow there possibly if you wanted to empower it that way. Maybe, I don't know. But either way, like, maybe have it reduce the cast time on Seed by like, I don't know, 0.5 seconds at rank 1 and then 1 second at rank 2. That might be a little fast. Maybe like, I don't know. You can figure out a number, but have some type of cast time reduction, because a 2-second cast time on Seed just feels really bad. I know if you get into super high haste scenarios, like you have a super short cast time, but that's literally every ability in the game. And having your main AoE be a slow 2-second cast, Seed, it just feels terrible. When a warrior or a windwalker or a demon hunter or an evoker or whatever other class in the game is going in there just spinning and blasting and meat grinding everything down, you're like, Seed. It doesn't feel good. So a reduced cast time would be sick if that was a possible replacement, maybe over Agonizing Corruption. But regardless, this talent needs attention, because if it's not changed, it probably won't see a whole lot of play. Moving on from there. So when it comes to the row here, Drain Soul's fine. We'll get to this in a minute. The next note I want to hit on is Vile Taint versus Singularity. So Vile Taint is currently simming a bit higher in single target. There's not a whole lot to this, really. I mean, probably just, shard gen, obviously the DT change is going to make a difference there too, giving you more shards. It makes it feels a little better casting VT. I think TLDR, a quick summary, just like, probably need to buff PS a bit in single target, because Vile Taint is indeed simming higher, and Vile Taint has some, it has like AoE, agony applications, implications, and all that. If they want Vile Taint to be the choice in single target, it's fine, but PS has typically been the go-to. It feels like it should be the go-to. Probably needs a bit of a damage buff to be better than Vile Taint in single target, but just a bit of a, hey, heads up kind of thing right there, because if not, VT is probably going to be played everywhere, right? So moving on to the central node here, Siphon Life and Absolute Corruption. Now, this is a loaded part of the video here, because Siphon Life has been talked about for a long time. People don't like it a whole lot. I don't hate Siphon Life as much as everybody else. However, I will say that when it comes to Affliction, during Alpha, the button bloat was utterly insane. When you had Decimating Bolt, you had Dimensional Rifts and everything. A lot of that was trimmed. But even looking at how Affliction is now, when you have Dread Touch to maintain, and other dots to maintain, and Shadow's Embrace to maintain, and Haunt to maintain, and 4 other dots to maintain, the button bloat on Affliction does feel a bit excessive, certainly compared to Destruction, and a decent bit to Demonology as well. So let's say we're playing this build in single target, right? We're going to open up here. Pet's on passive. That's okay. We're going to sack it anyway. So let's pull a pet out here. We're going to sack it. So Affliction's typical opener, right? We're going to open like this. We're going to go Haunt, Unstable Affliction, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life. We're going to drain the 3 stacks of Shadow's Embrace. 2, 3. We're going to PS. If you're playing Soul Rot, you Soul Rot there. You Trinket, you Dark Glare, you Rapture 3 times. 1, 2, 3. You catch your Haunt. Then you can Rapture again for Dread Touch. Catch Shadow's Embrace. Drain a bit here. You can refresh Corruption. Rapture for Dread Touch. Refresh Siphon Life. Refresh Agony. Rapture for Dread Touch. Catch Unstable Affliction. Drain a little bit. Rapture Dread Touch about now. Catch your Haunt. Drain for a second. Corruption. Rapture for Dread Touch. It failed for a second there. Catch Siphon Life. Drain again. Catch Agony. Rapture for Dread Touch. Drain a bit. UA. Rapture for Dread Touch. Drain. Catch Haunt. Catch Corruption. Rapture Dread Touch. Catch Siphon Life. PS. We're going to Rapture for Dread Touch. We have a PS up here too. Rapture. We're going to drain with Nightfall. We're going to Agony. We're going to drain with Nightfall a little bit here again. We're going to Rapture for Dread Touch. We're going to catch Corruption. We're going to dump our Drain Life. The button bloat is still sort of there. It's not as bad as it was during Alpha and Beta, but it certainly is still there. Now, a way to, I think, alleviate that, and also probably appease a good portion of the community, myself sort of included, but also make the class more enjoyable, I think would legitimately be to return Siphon Life to a form that it used to be in, which is something like this. Now, it might need some changes. I had to go digging through a million sites to find this, but so I believe this is how it was in Pandaria, I believe. When you deal damage with corruption, you are instantly healed for 40% of the damage dealt. In addition, your damage done by your corruption, seed of corruption, and unstable affliction damage over time is increased by 5%. So it's both a passive heal to you, but it's also a damage increase to corruption, seed, which you have so as well, wouldn't hurt there, and unstable affliction. Now, chances are high you have to modify this value and make it higher because it probably doesn't beat AC at that point because you're losing a dot effect for Rapture. But realistically, you want to have Siphon Life be the choice in like single target, maybe 2 target, and then have AC be like the 3-4 target, cleave choice, right? And if you had this empower corruption, UA, and seed, it maybe makes it an option in some cleave scenarios, so some seed-based scenarios, but it gives you choices. It gives you options. And in the end, if it's an issue empowering seed, just don't have it empower seed. Make it empower agony, corruption, and UA. Have it buff your dots more. Have it like maybe make it so Siphon Life just says passively you heal for 10% of the damage dealt by your dots, and it increases damage of agony, corruption, unstable affliction by 20% or whatever it is. I mean, there's a million modifiers with unstable affliction, with this, and everything else, but in this, and this, I guess this is more Rapture, but you can figure it out. You can run the math, but I think actually like legitimately just changing Siphon Life to a passive effect and having it passively increase dot damage would make it a better, more applicable choice. It would help with button blow a lot for affliction because it is sort of like doing brain surgery at times on fights for ad spawn. You're trying to juggle 2 agonies, 2 corruptions, 2 Siphon Lives. You can't move your UA around because MA stacks. You're trying to Rapture and maintain Dread Touch. It's just like, what is going on? It would help a tremendous amount if it went back to a passive kind of form that just buffed your dots passively. And once again, siphon some life back to you. It literally fits the exact name of the ability pretty much perfectly. So moving on from there, there is some issues with Siphon or Soul Swap. We'll get to that in the other part of the video coming up hopefully soon here. I think these points are all fine for the most part. These are all fine for the most part here as well. So there are some problems with the final part of this tree. Now, I think this is fine. I think MA is sort of fine. It's a bit of a restrictive playstyle. We'll get to that once again later on in the video here, but I think Doom Blossom, unfortunately, is just not very good. I wish this ability was better, but I just don't think it is. I feel like you need to buff the actual proc chance per stack of MA that you have for this to be relevant. But the problem with Doom Blossom and Plus, or really anywhere you're playing it with ads dying, for example, is say that if I have a target in a pack that I have, unstable affliction on, and I've raptured a handful of times, and I have 3 MA stacks up, and let's say, for example, this thing is going to die. This one's going to die right here that has UA on it, right? And these are all living for a while. Okay, this thing's going to die. If it dies with UA on it, I'll get a shard back, but my MA stacks fall. I want to move the UA early so I don't lose my MA stacks, but you still lose them regardless. So you're forced to rapture once, rapture twice, rapture 3 times again to get Doom Blossom working. We can just instead go, hey, I'm just going to spam seed and AFK and just spam seed. That's literally it, right? It's too much work for not enough reward. Now, you could, I think if you're going to buff it and not just overhaul it or remove it, you buff the chance per stack of MA to proc the effect, because it does work in a single target, but the vast majority, basically every build that's played this row fully, has just been Creeping Death, MA, and Dread Touch for the single target damage amp that it gives AF. In a world where Seed, and this is once again a part of the video in a little bit here, in a world where Seed and So are your best options in AoE, it feels odd to have a node trying to make Rapture work, which if it was strong enough, it might work, but your main spender is Seed in AoE. So you have a node here that encourages rapturing 3 times and putting a UA on a large, prio mob, and then seeding versus just spamming seed. And in the end, it really just doesn't work out very well. So it's a cool ability. I like it. It's almost like a Shadow Bolt volley in a sense, just worded differently, but it probably needs a buff to the percent that you get per stack of MA. And honestly, it might just not be good enough in the first place. Because once again, it goes into that conundrum of, do I want to seed or rapture? The answer is probably just seed the majority of the time. And moving on from there, the next row here, this row is fine-ish. I don't love Seed's Vitality, but it's sort of a toll you got to pay to get this final ability here. This row here, so Summon Dark Lair is bad. It's actually so bad that you're not even playing your main demon cooldown in pure single targets. This build here is simming better in single target with Soul Rot than playing Dark Lair. Now, would I actually play this build? No, because they're both pretty close, but there's no chance this should be beating your main demon cooldown. Dark Lair needs a buff. It's needed a buff to its passive I-beam damage for a long time. And yes, Visionary does that at rank 1 and rank 2, and so does Grim Reach. But I mean, Grand Warlock's design, it has never gone hand in hand with Dark Lair. Like, Wilfred's and Dark Lair were never really a combo unless you're memeing. This doesn't bring any power to anything. It's like empowering nothing, because Dark Lair doesn't really do anything, right? It extends your dots and gives you more rapture value, more dot value a little bit. But the cooldown itself really doesn't do a whole lot. So, I mean, Dark Lair probably needs just straight up I-beam buffs. It doesn't do anything at all, really. The fact that they changed the mastery to work with Soul Rot and also the Dread Touch affects it now, and it's beating out Dark Lair, is pretty sad. It needs some attention. Now, to a similar extent, they did indeed fix the bug with Grim Reach, where it was double dipping recently into dots, basically nerfing Grim Reach by half, without any buff to compensate. Now, I understand that it probably was double dipping and doing more damage than it should have, but at the same time, Grim Reach was not incredibly OP. Affliction was still going neck and neck with Demo on Primal Council. It wasn't doing great in Plus, barring Algothar's Academy. Like, Grim Reach was not OP, and the bug fix, I wouldn't say gutted this ability, but it hurt it a good bit, and there was no buff to compensate. So, Grim Reach is a cool ability. When you fully empower Dark Lair, sure, it's good. But on its own, it's terrible. But I think Grim Reach needs a buff to compensate for the bug fix that came in, because like I said, even when the bug was around, I mean, nobody really knew, because the ability, it wasn't like it was doing, 90% of your damage. If it was doing that, something's wrong. But nobody even really knew, because it was fine at what it did anyways. It was a good button to hit every 2 minutes. You typically played this row here into Grim Reach, and you played this in the Dread Touch, but it wasn't like Season 3 S4 Destro from Shadowlands. It was just okay. When you had Dark Lair, it did fine AoE. I think Grim Reach probably needs a buff to compensate for the actual DPS lost in the bug fix. And the final thing here in this row, trying to speed it up a bit here, is Soul Rot, Soul Eater's Gluttony, and then Dark Harvest. Soul Eater's Gluttony should probably be a 1 talent point node. I don't have it be like 0.7 seconds per, like at rank, 1 out of 1. Having it be a 2-point node is odd. Having it be a 1-point node essentially syncs it with like your Soul Rot. And 2 points is like, I think basically a Vile Taint sync, maybe a bit more or less, but it's awkward. I'm not a huge fan of it. I wish it was something else. But the big problem with this row is Dark Harvest. This is just undertuned. This is Decaying Soul Satchel from Shadowlands, the legendary effect from Night Fae. I mean, this is the Night Fae ability, right? In Shadowlands, Dark Harvest was Decaying Soul Satchel. It was 5% per target hit. And that is what gave you the cast time increase or made seed casting faster, right? You were able to cast seeds faster with this being down and Field of Blossoms that gave you a further haste amp, a further, crit amp, I guess further haste amp. But it felt good. 2.5% per target hit, being a max of 4, because this hits 4 targets, is not enough. A 20% amp in 4 targets felt good. 20% haste and crit is not that insane. And yeah, it might be due to having Soul Eater's Gluttony be maybe like a CDR in the ability, but honestly, it doesn't make up for a 10% loss in crit and haste. Seed is still slow to cast. The empowerment to crit and haste is not enough. Dark Harvest needs to return to 5% per target hit, and it needs to just be, I mean, whether it's a minute cooldown or a half-minute cooldown or whatever, it wouldn't be too strong, and it would help a lot in the Seed having a slow cast time department. So Dark Harvest, it could be good, but it needs to be buffed back to 5% per target hit, because at 2.5%, it's really not going to be played in scenarios probably anywhere, unless like it's a niche setting where you want Soul Rot for both like this effect and the forking of ID. Even if you do, it's not always played in all the scenarios. It's just that subpar. All right, so there are 2 other issues I want to summarize here. One we touched on briefly. I don't want the video to be too long. I'm going to try and go fast here. So we talked about Affliction and button bloat, right, when we were looking at Siphon Life. Now, when it comes to Affliction's opener, and honestly, when it comes to the buttons that I use for Affliction, comparatively to Destro, it is so much higher. Even Demonology, it's a good bit higher. So your opener is, I mean, Haunt, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life. Let me start over here. Good lord. Haunt, Precast and Stable Affliction, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, Drain Soul to 3 stacks of Shadows, Embrace, Phantom Singularity. If you're playing Soul Rot, you pop it there. If you're Dark Lairing, you pop it there for 9. Then you Potion, which is 10. Then you Rapture, which is like the first Rapture cast. That's 11. Technically, you Rapture 3 times. Then you rapture a 4th time for Dread Touch. That's like 12 different abilities that I'm already popping, roughly. Like 10 to 11, 12. I lost track. I don't know. And you're also having to refresh Agonies and Corruptions and Siphon Lives and Unstable Affliction and Haunts and maintain Shadow's Embrace and watch Pandemic Invocation and watch Dread Touch while all that is happening, right? Now, we talked about Siphon Life already being just maybe changed back to an older form where it just increases dot damage and maybe heals you for a bit instead of being a dot application effect, which I'm still a huge fan of. Affliction just has a lot of button blow. That's not factoring in trinkets, it's not factoring in soul swaps, it's not factoring in soul burn for anything if you want. It's just odd that it feels like a dot-based class, and I enjoy the way Aff plays for the most part, but it feels excessive at times. And like, let's say, for example, I'm going into a situation where, like on Dathia, for example, right? Let's say this is Dathia, and we're attacking Dathia, doing whatever. We know an ad's going to spawn, so we got some dots up. We're going in here. I'm not going to CD. We got dots up. Let's say an ad spawning, right? Our ad spawn's cool. We're going to go over here. We're going to start applying dots. We're going to try and not move our UA. We're going to PS. We're going to try and get Dark Lair going here. It extends. We're going to try and Rapture for MA stacks here, which could be over here. Doesn't matter. We're Rapturing a bit. But watch what happens in a second or two here. We're Rapturing a bit. All right, catch Corruption, catch Agony, catch Siphon Life, catch UA, try to catch UA, catch that, catch Corruption, catch Agony, catch Siphon Life, catch Shadow's Embrace, catch Haunt, Corruption's falling back over here. Where's my UA at? Rapture for Dread Touch. Try Dread Touch. Where's Dread Touch? Can't do it. Siphon Life. It's just, even when it comes to single target, the button bloat feels sort of real. When it comes to 2 targets, the button bloat feels very real. Like you don't have a free GCD. You're constantly spamming abilities, watching Pandemic Invocation windows, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, Shadow's Embrace, Haunt, Dread Touch, MA stacks, Singularity, Soul Rots, Dark Lairs, ID stacks. I forgot about this thing. You got to drain. Like, there's so much micromanagement going on. And I really feel like, yes, okay, in 3+ target settings, AC can indeed alleviate that. But in 2 targets and things, at times even 3, Siphon Life is the better option, pure damage-wise, right? I feel like, once again, a shift to Siphon Life just being a passive effect maybe heals you for a bit whenever your dots do damage, but also increases the damage of Agony, Corruption, and Unstable Affliction, maybe seed by, I don't know, 20% or whatever, would go a very, very long way. And number 1, alleviating button bloat, increasing the funness of the spec, making it more exciting. And just number 3, honestly, like, sort of like appeasing the community, which has been asking for Siphon Life to be removed for a long time. I don't hate Siphon Life as much as everybody else, but realistically, it does feel like it's a bit of an issue, even with the Dread Touch duration extension being a thing in 10.0.7. Now, number 2 here, very briefly, I want to wrap it up. Malefic Afflictions. So this ability was bugged up until a few weeks ago, where if mobs were dying, you would still maintain 3 Malefic Affliction stacks. Goodness. Basically, it was permanent, and it felt very good. Obviously, it was bugged, it was OP, it wasn't going to last. But there's an issue when it comes to switching targets in dungeons and raids, wherever. Let's say on Dathia, for example. Let's say, once again, this is Dathia. I'm fighting the boss. It's going to open up here. Let's say I've got dots rolling. I got an MA up here. I got a UA up here. We'll get some MA stacks rolling, right? So we'll go 1, 2, 3. Catch some dots here. So I have 3 stacks here. Let's say the tornado ad spawns. I want to shift prior damage to it. I'm not playing Soul Swap for whatever reason, right? You go over here. I want to get big damage in this thing, but I can't move my UA, because if I do, MA stacks fall. Realistically, the one over here didn't fall. I just moved it, but the stacks still fall. So if I do that, I have to Rapture 3 times to stack MA to 3 and then get Dread Touch rolling. And when this thing dies, guess what? I moved UA back, and I'm back to 0 once again. And it makes the prio target swapping of Affliction just glacially slow and not even worth really doing it in most settings. Like on Sonarth, for example, you don't put UA on the big spider ad because MA falls. On Dathia, you don't UA the big ads because MA falls. Now, I don't know if this is an issue with MA, like at its core, like in what the ability actually does, or is it a design, I guess, issue of it should just stay? Because theoretically, Malefic Affliction or Unstable Affliction is not falling when you move the ability. All you're doing is, like, it's still active. Like all MA, all Rapture, it's still active. It's not falling. Like, hasn't fallen, still not fallen. It's just moving, right? Now, there is an issue. There is a way to get around this, and that is by playing Soul Swap. So let's open up here again here, right? We're gonna open up Haunt. Not a great opener. We're just going in, whatever. UA is still bugged, by the way, in these dummies. Sorry, it'll fall in a sec here. It'll be fine. It's just, Yeah. So we're gonna UA. We're gonna do this. I'll Rapture a little bit for 3 stacks of MA here. Sure, I'll even Dark Lair. Why not? Sure, we'll Dark Lair. We'll Rapture 3 times. So there's 1, 2, 3. I'll Soul Swap, right? So my UA is I guess theoretically still stored, and I'll exhale. So UA is over here, but MA did not fall because it copies and basically keeps the UA active when you're in this kind of scenario, right? So it actually maintains UA here, making prior target swapping easier for faster Dread Touch. But when this thing dies, or when I move it back, it falls once again. And the problem with that is that Soul Swap is a half-minute cooldown. So you can't theoretically go, all right, you know, inhale these dots, exhale these dots with moving UA, then before it dies, inhale them again and move it back. So there could be a solution of just making this a shorter cooldown, but this thing also copies Haunt, it copies PS, it copies Soul Rot, and that gets into dangerous territory of Dark Lair extensions being a bit OP. I don't know. I mean, maybe not. I don't know how you'd swing that, but I think there needs to be a world where you can move Unstable Affliction by casting the ability without actually having MA stacks fall. Because when they fall, you lose so much Unstable Affliction damage, and you have to Rapture 3 times, often at points where you don't want to, without PS, without Soul Rot up, just to get 3 stacks back, and then Rapture again to get Dread Touch going. On fights like, I mean, it's almost every fight this tier. Aranog, Primal Council, Aranog, Primal Council, Sinarth, Kurog adds, Brewkeeper Prio adds, Razigath Intermission adds, and I think I'm forgetting a fight too. Almost every fight this tier, there would be settings where you want to move your UA. Dathia to a Prio mob, maintain MA, Rapture for Dread Touch, get it dead, or get it close to being dead, and then move it back to the main target without losing stacks, but you can't. And that really, really, really hurts Affliction's overall viability, strength, everything when it comes to a prog-based scenario, right? So hopefully button bloats addressed in some way, shape, or form, and to a similar extent, hopefully MA's looked at, because honestly, it's not going to make Affliction a powerhouse. Let's be honest. When this bug was around for 2 weeks, Aff was not destroying anything in the raid. It was okay. I mean, it got better. That was the baseline buffs, right? It makes the toolkit so much better for prog-based settings, but it doesn't break the spec and make it early OP. So button bloat and MA UA moving needs to be looked at. Maybe it's reducing the cooldown of Soul Swap. Maybe it's just making it, you know, movable with hard casting regardless. But those are the 2 big points I want to bring up besides baseline talent point feedback. So thanks for watching, guys. That should just about wrap it up. Hopefully hit on the big points you guys are feeling the same as I am about for Affliction. I think Aff's toolkit overall is pretty solid. There's just some little things here and there that can indeed be changed to just make the spec better in a prog-based setting. The spec doesn't feel that bad. There's some button bloat. The MA thing, once again, is very odd. I don't know why it functions that way. Seed's cast time's a little long. Dark Lair is a little subpar. And a couple other nodes here and there can be fixed or looked at maybe possibly. Siphon Life being one of them. But I don't think Aff is, like, bad. I enjoy playing the spec. I played it on Brewkeeper last night, Mythic, in a single target build. And actually had a blast playing it. It was a lot of fun, right? Soul Swap's back in its old form. There's potential for Aff to be good next year. But these changes that are suggested don't make it, like... Don't take it from being good to being OP. It just makes it good to probably the same power level, but feeling much better to play, right? It may make it a little easier to play in certain settings. Let's be honest. Affliction with Dread Touch and 2 targets versus like Destro was literal brain surgery versus like nothing. I don't know. It's 2 completely different things. So hopefully this feedback's taken into account and we'll see where it all goes. So with that being said, guys, if you have any questions, put them down below in the comment section. As always, I'll do my best to get back to you. If I missed anything in the video, put it down there as well, and I'll do my best to read over it. As always, any weak ORS add-ons and profiles in the video you saw, links to Twitch and Discord down below are all free for you guys. And I want, once again, as always, one massive shout out to my patrons. Guys, thank you a million times for supporting Patreon. I really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here as well as down below in the video description. Now, I would assume that 10.1 is on PTR within a few weeks at this point. I think we're going to see it pretty soon, actually, which is going to surprise a lot of people. But I am not expecting huge lock changes anymore in 10.0.7. Probably more of a 10.1 angle. But like I said, give it a few weeks and, man, we're probably going to have overlapping PTRs. A lot going on. So I'm hoping this feedback is done in time. I think it should be. If not, you know, it is what it is. But either way, Destro and Aff, regardless of where they're at now, like toolkit wise, they're still in a much better spot than they were going into 10.0 buff wise. So I guess we'll see where it goes. With all that being said, thanks for watching, guys. If you liked the video, hit the like and sub buttons below. Helps out a ton. And I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.